We're going live after that one. That that was rough. When something like that happens, I personally want to talk about it and go through it and have a conversation and dive a little bit deeper into this one because man, there's a lot to talk about. So, first of all, welcome everybody. I'm going to tweet out the link. Make sure we get people in. I want to talk about it a little bit. So, I'm going to get a stream started. I already have the stream started, but I'm going to get people invited. I'm going to get the link out. And let's talk about it, man. Welcome everybody to the stream. Hope everyone is doing well. Happy holidays to each and every one of you, even though this doesn't feel like a super festive night. Dominique, what's going on, brother? Thank you so much for being here. What WTF did we just see? That's what I'm trying to find out, man. But let's dive into it. So first of all, let's address this. In this league, no matter what team it is, no matter what lineup you're facing, you can never take the foot off the gas for even 10 seconds. If you even let one or two shots off on a team like the Los Angeles Clippers, they will take that and they will run with it. And you see what can happen when a team starts feeling confident and they can get going. The Los Angeles Clippers had a 27-4 run to close out the last few minutes of that game. And in overtime, like the Pistons offense was dormant. They had 3 points in overtime. They couldn't make a shot. And it seemed to me like, I know a lot of people were going on and saying that, like I saw people saying that, like Killian could be to blame for this loss. And listen, I don't want to blame it on one particular player. I think every player has something to take blame. Every person on the team, like I know people are gonna, do the usual thing that they do. And I know that I'm already expecting the coaching thing to come up. And, I don't have a comment on that tonight. I that's just a bad loss. And Deuce, I think you said it well, brother. That is a growing pains game. That is in my opinion, that is a come to Jesus game for young players, for young teams, because sometimes, man, you need to have that brutal lesson. And even though this team has had many brutal lessons that they've had to learn this season, that in particular was a bitch. There's just no other way to say it. But this league is a 4-quarter league. I know it's obvious, but this team needs to be able to consistently put it together for 4 quarters and able to win a game. They came out and had their best third quarter performance of the entire season. Came out and had arguably their best offensive display of the entire season. And clearly, when Tyronn Lue switched out that lineup and brought in that bench, clearly the Detroit players in their heads started to relax, started to take it off the gas, started to be a little bit more flat on the offensive end. And naturally, when it becomes more of a game, when it gets tighter, and when it becomes a situation where this team has to play crunch time minutes against the Los Angeles Clippers, when you're getting in a shootout with one of the best teams in a league, a team that has a legitimate chance, by the way, this Clippers team, if Kawhi's healthy, has a legitimate chance to be a finals team. And one of the reasons why is because their bench is a top 5 bench. When you look at scoring benches over the last 2 months, the Pistons have been up there, but right next to them have been the Los Angeles Clippers. Guys like Terrence Mann, guys like Luke Kennard, guys like Marcus Morris. Like they just have a group. They just have a ton of guys that can put the ball in the basket. And that showed. It just showed, right? Like they were able to come in and they were able to do that, right? So, and listen, it's like one of those things where it's not a loss where like I'm not like I don't want to point the fingers at anybody and blame a particular person. That's one where that goes on the entire locker room. Like the bottom line is that goes on everyone that was on the court. Like, yeah, they were trying to put pieces together, and Alec Burks was trying to hit clutch shots, and Killian was trying to do his best to put shots together. But when you keep consistently missing shots, when you keep consistently making bad decisions, when you let your mind go anywhere else for even a second, the game can flip just like that. That's the NBA, man. And the Pistons learned that lesson hard tonight. Now, I still don't think, listen, and I know people are going to want to go and like, there has to be like, people need to be held accountable. Believe me, their next practice is going to be is not going to be fun. That locker room is not going to be a fun locker room to be in tonight. But that's the thing. Like, exactly, Chuck. Like, the first 45 minutes was a really good performance, but that's the exact thing, Chuck. Like, people are going to forget it because at the end of the day, in this league, like, if you let it up for the last 3 minutes and you let the team come out and get the win, that can happen, right? And it really doesn't matter when you don't pull out with the win. So, like, it's something that you can build off of. It's proof that you can play more of a complete game, but you have to finish it. When you have that type of team on the ropes, you don't let the fight continue to go. It's one of those things. It's like in boxing, right? It's like, let's say you're this boxer, and the way that you're going out there to fight, because a lot of times fighters, they're not fighting to go get knockouts. They're trying to fight and play to the scorecard, right? Like guys like Floyd Mayweather mastered, this style. I know that, like a lot of boxers tend to try to avoid getting damage, don't really like to go in for the knockout, and they try to play the card, right? The problem is if you're winning the entire if you're winning the entire match, you come out and kick ass all 9 rounds and you get to round 10, you stop focusing even for a second. They can lay a knockout punch. There was a UFC fight earlier this year. I forgot who was in it, but it was a championship bout. I believe it was for the middleweight championship, and someone literally won off of a knockout in the final minute when they were going to lose off of the scorecard. Like it's the exact same thing. You just can never let your foot off the gas. You can never let your team be in a situation where that can happen. And like at the end of the day, I don't think this changes anything about the season. I think this is just another difficult loss for a team that needed a piece of momentum, a team that as is without Cade Cunningham, is without their stable leader, and it's one of those things where it sounds like a broken record, because we can always come back to the conversation of like, we can always come back to the conversation of if we had Cade. But that's the thing. It's just one of those things where it doesn't matter. Like he's not going to come out there to help you tonight. Like, he wasn't there. You have to overcome it. And Isaiah Stewart said it well. James Edwards III in the media room right now. I'm sure my guy Kool-Aid is in there as well. Shout out to my guy. Isaiah Stewart on the loss. We needed that win right there to get our spirit back. We didn't finish the game out. That's not on coaches. That's on us. We took the lead for granted. They took their starters out. That is 100%. 100% it. And I understand, like, people want to point at one person and want to find something to blame. And that's been my whole thing with Dwayne Casey. I want to make that very clear. I have never argued that Dwayne Casey is, the long-term coach of the future. I've never argued that Dwayne Casey, is, should be absolved of criticism or blame or anything, against him, because, everyone deserves critiques and to be held accountable and to be questioned, especially when you're holding one of the 30 head coaching jobs in this league, right? Like, you're going to be held accountable. That's just the way it is. But at the same time, when you're like a team, like when you are a team like the Pistons, when you are going through so many things, when you are, have players that are so young, like at the end of the day, Tyronn Lue turned to his bench. He cleared out his starting lineup. For all intents and purposes, the Clippers conceded. The young guys took their foot off the gas, just like he said. They took it for granted, and it cost them. And that's exactly the thing. Like, people just, and even Isaiah Stewart said as well, Quote, everyone has to point the fingers at themselves and look in the mirror. Coach is doing a good job. We have to be able to finish that. And like, it's one of those things where we can argue and we can debate about what Dwayne Casey's doing or what, like what his overall vision is for the team. Like what I'll tell you is listen, from a player development standpoint, all around, Killian Hayes has gotten better as the season's gone on. Jaden Ivey's looked more than comfortable in his rookie season. Jalen Duren has looked like a guy that can be a perennial superstar as a big man. I'm super high on that guy's future. I don't know, from a player development standpoint, if I'm going to be critiquing, but at the same time, it's one of those things where, yeah, man, it is a rough loss. And it's exactly what Dominique said. It's like collective loss. Not one person is undeserving of blame. That's exactly it. It's like, yep, Dwayne Casey's at fault. Jalen Duren's at fault. Jaden Ivey's at fault. Bojan Bogdanovic is at fault. Killian Hayes is at fault. Alec Burks is at fault. Troy, it is everyone that was on the court, on that bench, that was part of that team, all deserves a piece of the blame. So, what do you do? How do you respond from that? Right? Like this team showed that they wanted to respond. This team showed that they wanted to fight. But that's the thing. When you take it for granted, when you think it's over, when you think you can ship the rest of the game, you just can't. Like even the best teams in the league, right? Like even when like the Celtics send out their players on the bench and like play them in garbage time, those guys are playing their asses off because when you're on the Boston Celtics, you're not going to get many opportunities to be playing. And in addition, if you could show that you have value, you could show that you have worth, like going deep into a playoff run, like that's why teams like the Celtics and teams like the Bucks can turn to their bench when they're up by 20 plus and 30 plus and still be more comfortably in a game. But like that's the difference. Like even though Detroit has a good bench, even though Detroit has like a good ensemble of players, like, you can draw up whatever you want. You can have whatever scheme you want. Like if you just stop paying attention or if you just lay off even a little bit, I mean, what can you do from a coaching standpoint? Like there was nothing, in my opinion, like that Dwayne Casey could have drawn up in overtime that would have changed anything about that game. Does anyone agree? Does anyone disagree? Like, was there anything that the coaching staff could have done maybe any differently? Like in that overtime session, like maybe try some different lineups, maybe like some different rotations, but like even then, man, like it just wasn't cooking from anywhere. Like it was a team wide collapse. Like that's just the way it is. The offense looked great for 40 plus minutes tonight, season high in assists. They stopped passing the ball and tried to play hero ball, not team ball that's on the kids. Yeah, exactly. And then like that's the other thing too, Chuck. You bring up exactly it. When young players, get scared and when young players slow down, they tend, when a player stops to move, they tend to stop moving the ball too. And when you are being stagnant for 10 plus seconds or 12 plus seconds or even 14, 16 plus seconds in a 24-second shot clock, you don't have much time to create an opportunity. And a team like the Clippers, you need every second of that shot clock to pull something out. You need every moment that you're given and every opportunity that's available to you. Every possession matters against the best of the best in this league. That's the bottom line. And so I know people are going to be upset. And like, I know even I'm like a little upset right now. Like, and it's not even from the sense of like, from like a fan standpoint. I know I wear the sweater. I know I have the players behind me. I know like I'm always going to be a fan of this team at the core, but just I think it's more frustrated from someone that covers the team and knows what their capabilities are. And I think I'm more frustrated on their behalf, if that makes any sense. So going into it, like going down the line, like all that to be said, yeah, that sucked. That absolutely sucked. The only thing in hindsight that Casey could have done is call timeout when the starters were pulled, but he couldn't have seen that was like couldn't have seen what was coming. He's like maybe he could have called like a certain timeout at a certain point, maybe like remind guys like, hey, you have to finish the job. But even then, like no one could have saw that type of onslaught. Like that was insane. Like that's just unprecedented. Like that's not something you see every night. And like again, like I understand, and I'm even seeing it on the timeline. And people are saying like fire Casey or make moves, and like people can say whatever they want, but like what about the rebuild? Like what about the rebuild improves when you remove Dwayne Casey at this point of the season? I mean, you'd have to find an interim head coach. You'd have to either name that on somebody within the staff, or you'd have to bring somebody from outside of the organization. There's not really any great names outside, like that are available right now for a head coaching position that, aren't dealing with certain things that, they should probably be talking to therapists for extended periods of time. But it's one of those things, and I get it, Dominique. I just want to know what's being said during timeouts and halftime because it seems like we can never stop other teams' runs. And it's like, and I think, and I would say if this game went differently and that ending didn't happen, we'd be having a conversation right now about how this team overcame the difficulties and made the adjustments and had their best third quarter in the season after having one of their worst. However, yet again, when you let your foot off the gas even for a little bit, that can happen. Especially, and then it's not like it's not like these guys are like total strangers, right? It's not like we don't know like who's on their team. It's not like we don't know that Luke Kennard can go out there and do something like that, or like guys like Reggie Jackson could go out and put up a bucket, or like what a guy like Marcus Morris is capable of. It's like it's not like we're oblivious to that either, right? So yeah, it's one of those things where, I definitely think people deserve, and people have their rights to be upset. I'm not saying that you can't be upset. Like you have, as a fan, every right to tune in and see a team that you love and want and wish better for them. Like that is totally okay, and that's acceptable, right? Like what I'm saying is that it's just not a productive conversation just to be like hashtag fire Casey. And like, listen, I'll just keep going back to this analogy, and people can keep like pushing back, and I know it's not going to change anything, and I know my opinion isn't going to influence the vast majority of Pistons Twitter, but I would say it's important to remember that before Steve Kerr there was Mark Jackson. Before Ime Udoka, and now, who they have, in the Celtics coaching seat, like just that in general, by the way, that entire staff is fantastic. Like even like not just the guy that they have right now that's their interim head coach, but even Will Hardy left and became a great head coach off of that team too. So it's just like, but before them, it was Brad Stevens. So like you look throughout the league, and at the end of the day, like there's a lot of coaches that, like there's coaches that come in and help lay the groundwork, do the developmental work, work with these guys. There's guys that are teachers that are and then there's guys that are coaches that are game strategists, that are ones that are there, to help raise banners. And, I still stand by the fact that I think for player development, I stand by the fact that he is a good coach for that job. And he said tonight, quote, "Our margin for error is very small, whether it's an entry pass or not seeing Paul George behind us." Even saying, "I applaud our guys for being," and Coach Casey said, I applaud our guys for being down 15 in the third quarter. We fought back, took the lead. They waved the white flag, and now we need to learn how to win." Like, that's exactly it. Like, you need to learn how to actually. Okay. Who has he developed, fam? Brother, do we have to keep having this conversation? Like literally everybody in Toronto, first of all, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, all of them credit Dwayne Casey for the successes in their career. In addition, he was a part of the 2010-2011 Dallas Mavericks squad that won the NBA championship, in parts because of the defensive schemes and development that he's had in that in that culture as well. In addition, when you come to Detroit and you look at the players that he's had in this entire tenure, Isaiah Stewart from year one to now is an entire completely different player. Killian Hayes from year one to year three is an entire completely different player. Cade Cunningham in his first season looked like a completely different player from day one to now. Like, you're a freaking moron. Get the hell out of here. I'm going to give you a timeout because you're a dumbass. So bring in Nick Nurse, bro. Oh my gosh, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, brother, if Dwayne Casey gets Kawhi Leonard and no LeBron James in his conference, and then the Golden State Warriors have like a torn Achilles injury, he would win a championship too. By the way, Nick Nurse looking real great in Toronto right now, right? The Raptors are looking pretty awesome too, eh? Nick Nurse looking like a fantastic coach. But I understand, Dominique. I know there was a lot of people that were skeptical about Dwayne Casey from day one. And quite frankly, I understand. No, dude, like, this wasn't practice in the mirror. Like, I've been having to fight this fight for years. Like that's the exact thing. Like, Casey has made shot into what we see tonight. Point for us. Yeah, Dwayne Casey developed me. No, but like, in all seriousness, man, like it's just one of those things where if a guy's just getting a ton of like unjustified hate and is just like the poster child of like all of like the team's woes and struggles, when like in reality, like, if you're wanting to look at the real people to blame, it's like it's the people that like set the team in this position to have to be in this long of a rebuild, like back in the Joe Dumars days, or like what Stan Van Gundy did to put this team in not a great position just so that he could try and save his job by getting to the playoffs, which they didn't even do. But like, that's a whole other conversation. Like, if people want to get mad about stuff, like to me, that's the stuff you get mad about. Like when it's something that like when it's something that is like so like right in front of you, like, hello. But and listen, I would not be opposed if someday Chauncey Billups is available, or the Pistons, are in a position where they would like to hire a new coach. I would not be opposed to that idea. And I'm not even saying that the Pistons shouldn't even move on to like a new coach next season. But like, first of all, it's not going to be a firing. Like, that's one thing. Like, I'm pretty certain Dwayne Casey's not getting fired. And two, like, nor should it be a firing. Like, in my opinion, like, if the team is going to move on in a different direction, in the coaching position, I think it's more than justified to still have Dwayne Casey in the organization and have some role. But like, until this guy actually has a healthy, competitive roster that is actually, viable for winning games on a consistent basis, that's when I'll make more judgments on what Dwayne Casey is as like a winning coach, especially in Detroit. But I mean, he's shown plenty of times when you give him multiple all-stars, when you give him like reliable players, he can put together one of the best lineups in the league. That's all I'm saying. And listen, man, I wouldn't even be opposed to giving Mark Jackson a chance at some point, right? Like, there's a lot of really good coaches out there, like a lot of like great candidates that you can potentially turn to. That is the thing, is like, it's one of those things where it's not a decision that they have to make right away, but it's a decision that certainly, like, they're not in a rushed position to make, if that makes any sense. Live in Nashville, what's going on with Bay? Seems like he is not getting any playing time. So that is a good question. Let's actually look at the minute breakdown tonight and actually see like where things were. So Sadiq did play about 26 minutes tonight. So he was in there for a while, but I think Detroit really tried to stick with their starters, especially, like in that third quarter. And like, I think they really went with a tighter rotation tonight with the intentions of trying to pull out a win and really trying to like have a more competitive game. This is a team that enjoyed playing like 10 plus guys and, having more players, with like mixed in and out of the lineups. And like, Sadiq is very much still a solid, key presence on this Pistons bench and in this Pistons lineup as a whole. But there's definitely not that consistency so far this season that I've been hoping for out of Sadiq this season. And there's still time for Sadiq to be able to go down that path. And I personally I understand what potentially could be an incentive for trading Sadiq Bey and getting a first round pick. I personally think that there's value in keeping Sadiq for now, seeing what he can do and where he can take this team. Why does it feel like Ivy gets such a short leash, especially today? I think it's one of those things where I think sometimes, you just try to teach a player, a lesson through, pulling them back in and reminding them and taking them out for a second, saying, "Hey, slow it down a little bit. Let's see how we can repurpose. Let's see how we can adjust. Let's see what we can change. Let's see what we can do different." I think with Ivy in particular, I think he's a guy that plays so fast sometimes with his speed. Sometimes he is a guy that you need to just bring back and slow down a little bit. And with Ivy in particular, when he's going too fast, that affects his decision making. We've seen Jaden Ivey being a really efficient player. We've seen Jaden Ivey not turn the ball over. We've seen Ivy have the ability to play consistent, smart basketball. But I mean, when he's taking wild shots or he's not playing the most efficient game and it starts to turn the ball over, there's miscommunications, on the defensive end. In my opinion, I think, he just tries to go in a different direction, right? So I don't necessarily think it's, I don't think it's a lack of trust. I don't think it's an intentional thing to, not give Ivy any opportunities, because I mean, obviously this team has a ton invested in Jaden Ivey. But I think in particular, I think for him, it's about being able to have those teaching moments, be able to slow down and have that type of thing. Ivy missed a lot around the basket this month compared to earlier in the season. There have been a good amount of times, Dominique, where I feel like he's taken it to the basket and he's had to learn, difficult lessons and harsh realities that in this league, you have to pick and choose your opportunities. Either that, or you have to get to a point where you are so dominant finishing around the rim that it's a flat out problem. A guy like John Morant, he's so tough and is able to finish through contact, but even when he gets to the line, he's such a high percentage free throw shooter and gets to the line a good amount that he's able to take advantage of those opportunities. Whereas with Ivy, his free throw shooting still hasn't been, the greatest up to this point. He was 5 of 6 for, tonight, to his credit, but when you're not able to consistently, convert on those attempts, and when you're also not getting to the line as much on a consistent base either, and then you're missing more and more shots, and you are finding out what bigs in this league can do, because it's one thing to be playing against bigs that play at Purdue or Illinois or Iowa. It's a whole other thing to be playing Mitchell Robinson. It's a whole other thing to be playing Joel Embiid. It's a whole other thing to even be playing a guy like Miles Turner. This league is a league of giants, right? And as elite as Ivy was as a rim finisher in college, and I still think can be elite at that in the NBA, you got to learn when to take your opportunities. You got to learn how to convert on them. And you got to learn, at the very least, the spots that that you're not going to be able to get over the top on a defender, or when that you're not going to be able to get a clear look at the rim, that at the very least, you can convert that into getting to the line, or you can find those opportunities, quicker, getting it to, the open man, and just making sure that you're limiting those turnovers. That's just going to be the big thing with Ivy. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. And I still think there's a lot of positives, to take off of tonight. Even Isaiah Stewart, I thought he had a really good overall game. I still think the world of Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, and what that combination can be, and what that can bring to the franchise. And I still think there's a lot to watch for, and a lot to, that to still be positive. But at the end of the day, these are the types of losses where you have to have a conversation as a locker room, and you really need to learn as a franchise, hey, We don't want this type of loss to happen ever again. We don't want to feel like that ever again. And like, quite frankly, man, that to me should be a turning point. And I hope that next game we see a more consistent approach and a more consistent performance from the boys. But with that, I'm going to probably, go off here in a couple minutes, but I'd love to know and I'd love to answer any of your guys' questions as you're rolling in. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope y'all had a good holidays, by the way, too, man. Like, I know this is a bummer, like the day after Christmas to have like this type of loss. But at the same time, man, I just want to say I appreciate you all a ton. We did a lot in 2022. I looked today and, in the year of 2022 alone on this channel, we had over 350,000 views. So thank you all so much for tuning in and being faithful and being a part of the community and in helping make make the channel be what it is. I've been insanely grateful. I also like real quick too, like while I have you guys here, like because I don't want to just be all negative. You know what I mean? I do kind of want to tell a little bit of a story. So stick with me here for about 5 seconds. So I this time last year on Christmas was sitting at 107 subscribers. I think I maybe have had about like 1100 views on the channel total, and really like it wasn't going anywhere. It felt like I was kind of struggling mentally, and I kind of, was of the mindset that I was going to be done. That was going to be it for the channel. But as I kept going on, as those final weeks of the year happened, I, got to, a point where I was like, no, I'm not done. We got to see this through. I got to see what can happen. And it's crazy because a week later, I got the offer to come work at Woodward Sports. And from there was able to meet a lot of people like Jeff Iafrady and Detroit Kool-Aid and all and really grow the relationship with people like like Everything King and my guys downtown Deuce and all the people in the community, Carl Collins, Steve, like all these incredible people. And man, just the fact that it's turned into the point where, not only do I have this awesome, like follower base, but my family for Christmas, my brother and sister-in-law, I want to give a shout out to them for Christmas, gifted me this poster with our From Half Court logo printed out. And that meant a lot, man, because that's not just any logo, man. That's my logo. And that logo means something, man. That logo means something now. And there's people that are tuned in and there's people that are dedicated. So I really appreciate it, man. So thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart for helping to make that happen. Ashton, my guy, it's so good to see you. I was literally about to text you like earlier and I was just going to say happy holidays, man. And I just appreciate the heck out of you, man. Meeting and getting to know Ashton over this year has been one of the biggest highlights for me personally in 2022. Not even just for like who Ashton is for like what he does, but just who he is as a person. I got mad love for Ashton. So, brother, thank you so much for being here, man. I love you. All the love in the world. Time to get the merch going, fam. Yes, sir. That is 100% in the cards for 2023. You best believe that's going to be happening. But man, I appreciate it. I'm glad I stuck with it too. I absolutely am. Let's get back to basketball because a lot of people are wanting to talk some hoops. And Ashton's here, damn it. We got to talk hoops with Ashton in here. I'm a fan of the team, but the tactical choices by the coach make no sense. Casey gets credit for being the coach of teams with young players that have potential. That's just Masai's good drafting. Brother, it takes way more than Masai Ujiri or Troy Weaver to put together a good team. It takes way more than front office management or savvy drafting to put things together. It takes the collection of things. It takes everything coming together. And I understand, being upset. I understand, like not liking, like certain decisions or where things are at. I get it. I'm not gonna, again, I'm not gonna make any comments tonight on, the fire Casey stuff. I've already said my piece on that. But at the end of the day, again, it's just about how can you play consistent basketball throughout 4 quarters, man? Because again, this team has shown like Killian is I in my opinion, man, I think a lot of the things that are like the struggles of his game, like you can just see it's the mental stuff, dude. And like the case in point is down the stretches, as things are getting tighter when it's in overtime and it feels like the game's slipping away from you. And it just felt like, that was when Killian was making more mistakes and he was kind of reverting back, to some of the Killian of old, where he was making some struggles. So I think, like there's just a lot there's so much that we could unpack on this one, man. Holy cow. Bring on Jerry Stackhouse. Dude, I would love to have Jerry Stackhouse on this pod. We are absolutely going to try to make some guests happen this year. By the way, I guess I'm going to try to get on the pod soon, and I'm not sure how to get this out there, but Lindsey Hunter. I want Lindsey Hunter on the From Half Court podcast, man. So badly. But at this point, Popovich is the only coach I'd take that's 50 years older than the play. Listen, man, Pop is one of one. I mean, like that guy's just living life, just coaching young players, developing guys, Jeremy Sohan, and just, waiting for the potential Victor Wembanyama. By the way, wouldn't it be insane if San Antonio got Victor Wembanyama after having freaking David Robinson, after having freaking Tim Duncan, and then going and get Victor? It'd be like, mother, why do they get all the good things, man? Like, come on, man. But yeah, so Detroit, when do they play next? So next game for the Pistons is going to be on they're going to be on Wednesday at home against the Orlando Magic. Paolo Banchero and the boys are back in town. The last time Orlando was in Detroit, we got the dub on opening night. Obviously, without Cade Cunningham, it will be a little bit more difficult. But at the same time, I'm really looking forward to that one. I think you're going to probably get the best effort out of the Pistons the entire season. I hope we can get Marvin Bagley back in the lineup at some point too. I feel like tonight his presence was missed. Like you just needed a guy that could put together a couple buckets down the stretch and close the deal. And they just didn't have anyone that was able to do it. And and especially when you don't have your franchise guy in, like you need to figure out like who on your team can take those opportunities and like how you can put those guys in those positions to succeed. But again, like those are the struggles and those are the woes of a young team. Those are the woes of a rebuilding team. But I'm telling y'all, man, this time next year, we're not going to be having the same conversations. I promise y'all. I really feel like this team is on the cusp of turning the corner. And so with that, I know these losses suck. I know these games are difficult. I know that nights like these aren't fun when you just watch the game slip away from you. But what makes it worth it, man, is that we're all going through it together. And at the end of the day, even though all these teams in Detroit just want to give us pain, we tune in anyway. But no, in all seriousness, man, I'm excited for Wednesday already. It's that's the thing. No matter what, even when the team it has me frustrated, I'm always waiting for, when Pistons basketball is next. So that's really what it comes down to. And listen, man, whether the Pistons get Victor Wembanyama or not, they're going to be in a great situation, man. I'm telling you what. And so I'm super grateful for y'all. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for members like Dominique, day one, homie right there. People like Chuck that are here all the time. There's a lot of people in these comments that are loyal or that are people that, have been there, since the channel was super small. So I appreciate y'all for real. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to wrap it up for now, but we will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.